Hey guys, today I'm out in Michigan taking a look at what Ford is calling an all-new Expedition for 2025. Although, if I'm realistic, this is really more of a heavy refresh because it keeps a lot of what Expedition shoppers have loved about the model, and of course added on to that with more off-road capability, more luxury, bigger screens, and the trick tailgate we recently saw in the Navigator. Let's take a look. The first model we should take a look at is the all-new Tremor model. Yes, Tremor has come to the Expedition. If you recall, last year we had an off-road model that was called the Timberline, but it didn't have the capability that we find in the Tremor line of pickup trucks, so they decided to bring the name and the capability here to their full-size SUV. On the outside, obviously, we have the orange accents on the Expedition logo that you saw just there just a moment ago, but we also have things like the off-road lights here. I'll turn them off so we can go in a little bit closer, but we have these off-road lights. They're activated via a button inside the instrument cluster. I will mention that these are touch buttons. You don't have physical controls for the headlights anymore. We'll talk about that on the inside in a bit. Reflector, LED headlights for highs and lows. Let me go ahead and turn those off so you can see the rest of the front end here. We'll go ahead and just put the parking lights on. It's a little bit easier to see what's going on. But we have the full LED reflector modules there. Inboard, that LED off-road light. New grills, obviously, for the various different models. A revised lower bumper as well. Orange accents for the Tremor trim and big tow hooks, but unlike some models out there, these are not really front and present, so they are a little bit under the bumper. I think that's actually fine because obviously that's going to be better for pedestrian safety, etc., but it means that you will have to get down a little bit lower in order to connect to those recovery hooks. Let's go around the side of the Expedition now, because here's where we see some additional changes. We have the most ground clearance now in the full-size luxury or mainstream SUV segment. I'm actually not quite clear what to call the Expedition because they are getting pretty pricey, and at basically $100,000 for some of the top-end trims, I would call them luxury vehicles. So about 11 inches of clearance. We have general grabber all-terrain tires here on this model. Of course, we have sort of rock rails, rock sliders there on the side, the Tremor badging as well. Kind of this army green paint is kind of cool. The size of the Expedition has not changed for this model year. So we still have the short wheelbase and the long wheelbase versions. It's important to know that if you get the long wheelbase version, it doesn't get any extra legroom in the third row. It just gets about a foot of extra cargo capacity behind. Moving to the back, we find perhaps the most controversial but also the most functional change for the Expedition. The first thing you're going to notice is this big black bar that runs across the back. That is not unique to the Tremor. We'll take a look at the other trims in a moment here. You'll find that in every model. I have noticed that even in these pre-production models, there are some fine scratches on the black section, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. We don't know if these are the final plastics. Maybe they will improve that. But we get a tailgate and a hatch. This is a really cool touch that we haven't seen in too many SUVs. And lighting, which is also kind of a nice touch. We'll take a look at some of the lighting around the vehicle as well. But we get integrated lights that are directional. You can actually adjust them. And then if I pop that button, the tailgate comes down. This is a feature that we've found in Land Rover and Range Rover models for a while. We're seeing it in the Expedition for the exact same reason. If you have cargo inside and you don't want it to roll out when you open the hatch and the cargo area in the back, this helps that out. And of course, if you want to have a tailgate party, you now have a tailgate for that tailgate party. In case you're wondering, you can basically close the hatch on top if you want and have some of those longer items like, say, sheets of plywood. Those can obviously hang out the back while you're grabbing some of those building supplies from the Home Depot if you want to. And you can also power close everything together. If I could find that button right there, you can actually have it power close everything together if you want to. On this side, we have a 7 and a 4-pin wiring harness connection. I really appreciate the fact that we have both of those on the Expedition because Ford says that their customers tow a bit more than average. And that's why they've increased the amount of towing capability when you don't have load bars attached. So if you're not using a load leveling hitch, you can now tow over 7,000 pounds with the Expedition. And if you want to use load bars, you can bump that all the way up to 9,000 pounds plus in terms of its towing capability. It's actually just about over 9,500 pounds of capacity. And that's all thanks to what we find under the hood. Under here, we have your choice of 2 different 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6s producing either 400 horsepower standard or 440 horsepower and 510 pound-feet of torque. Both engines are mated to Ford's 10-speed automatic transmission, and we get basically the same sort of drivetrain that we find in the F-150. And that means that in the Tremor here, we also have an electronic locking rear differential, there's a 4-low mode, but then they've also borrowed some of the off-road tech from the Bronco and from some of the other Ford models. For instance, we have the one-pedal trail drive mode where you can lift your foot off the accelerator pedal, it's automatically going to activate the brakes, and we have the trail turn assist function. That's really cool because obviously this is a pretty big vehicle, and if you have one of these out on the trail, some of those tighter trails can feel even tighter when you're driving something this size. So what it's going to do is it's going to lock one of the rear wheels and basically help you around that corner by sort of locking and dragging one wheel around. It is going to be a little bit harder on the trail, so I'm not sure exactly how I feel about too many Tremor Expeditions out there on some of those tighter trails, because it is going to cause more trail damage, but it's also certainly going to get this around the corner an awful lot tighter than without that feature. Now let's take a look at the interior. The front seats are pretty similar to what we found last year. This is the Platinum trim at the moment. We'll get back to the Tremor in just a second, but we have the Platinum logo right there. We still have things like the seat massage. Seat massage is controlled via the touch screen in the center section, and that's also where you're going to be able to adjust things like the 4-way adjustable lumbar support if you're interested in adjusting that a bit differently. I'll show you that in just a second. The big difference, of course, happens further in the back, but it's not really the second row exactly. So if I come back here, we still have a 3-person 40-20-40 folding second row. And to be honest, this middle seat is so wide, I would call this really more of a 33-33-33 second row. We have the shoulder belt integrated right there, nice touch. Also, 3 sets of latch anchors in the second row. So latch anchors right there for the center seat position, which is why it's handy that it also slides forward and backward independently from the outboard position. So if you want your kid to be a little bit closer to the action up front, you can do that, still have them safely strapped in. Then we have the power sliding console that you're going to see in just a second as well. It allows you to get that console real close to the second row passengers. That is there so that way you can put cups in the cup holders, a tablet right there in the tablet holder. Maybe you have easier access to the climate controls down there below. And then we have tablet holders also here on the headrest, so kind of an interesting touch, the ability to put tablets kind of everywhere there. You can also just drop them in there if you don't have the Expedition with that particular option. So lots of ways to do that. And you notice we also have the USB charge ports down there. If I get out of this seat, let's take a peek under there. Oh yeah, 2 USB-C ports actually in each seat back. The other thing worth noting is that we have a lot of child seat practicality in this vehicle. So second row outboard seats tilt and slide forward with a child seat latch anchored into place. That is a really cool touch. Obviously that does not happen with this center section. That folds in more of a traditional fashion, just barely with that center console right like that. I'll go ahead and move that seat forward so you can see what's going on back here in the third row. This is where we see a pretty significant change because now we have a 40-20-40 folding third row. This is a really cool touch because it allows you to put longer items in the cabin. So I don't know why there's a football in the back of here, but hey, there's a football. And suppose you had, I don't know, a long line of footballs, some extraordinarily long football, whatever. You could actually have that going right through the cabin. That's a cool touch as well. We'll take a look at that in the cargo area. Additional sets of latch anchors just for the outboard seating positions here. And these are still powered third row seats. So they power recline and power fold. You can't fold it from the inside, but you can do the recline. Let's check out the cargo area. This is the Expedition Max, which means we get about a foot of extra cargo room back here. Again, that 2-stage hatch and tailgate, really cool touch. This supports up to 600 pounds, so you can have an actual tailgate party with that. And you can use some of the dividers that they have in the system to create basically a bench. You can also use these as a table in the back, but we're here to talk about the 40-20-40 folding third row. I really appreciate the practicality of this touch, but you should know that the hinge location is not in the same spot as the outboard seats. So if I power fold that third row on that side right there, you can see it's going down and it hinges way down there. So those longer items that you might want to put inside, like skis or IKEA furniture or whatever, they're going to be a little bit higher off the ground, but I really appreciate the practicality of this touch because it's the only SUV in the segment that offers it. Ford definitely thought a lot about the modularity of features like this table, because not only does it function as a table, it also functions as a backrest. When used as a table, it supports about 35 pounds. That's about as much weight as you probably ought to be putting on the backrest, but it's definitely going to make tailgating parties a lot easier. Let's go ahead and take a look at the power close mechanism, because as you can see, it flips up right like that. And in case you're wondering, yep, you can leave that table in the backrest position without worrying about it getting crushed. So Ford definitely thought about a lot of these touches here. And that's something that I really appreciate, is the amount of time and dedication they really spent on some of these nicer touches, especially the table function. This actually reminds me a bit, for instance, of the table that we find in the refreshed Bronco Sport for 2025 with the pop-out legs. Now you might be wondering to yourself, why do we have pop-out legs? Well, that's because you can't just use this as a backrest, you can also use it as a table in this position, so you can bring that tailgate a little bit further out, the tailgate party a little bit further out. Again, I'm not quite clear why there's so many footballs in the back, but if you're worried about them rolling out the back, that's why we can close the tailgate separately. And with that tailgate closed, let's take a look at the lighting all the way around, because Ford's really proud of their lighting. We don't just have these rotatable lights in the back, we also have LED zone lighting up here. I have them turned off because it's really difficult to show you with them on, but there are LED lights on each side. Those are going to shine down towards the back. And then we have LED lights integrated here into the roof rails. That's an interesting touch because those lights sort of the rear quarter area of the vehicle. Then of course we have the puddle lights in their typical location under the side view mirrors. So we have lighting that points down from that section of the rear view mirror. Then of course zone lighting up front's pretty easy because we have a whole bunch of headlights up front. Let's take a look around the inside of this Tremor trim. Again, we have that really low dashboard. I apologize for this interior being so dark, but if we turn the light away for just one moment, it does help you see the ambient lighting that we see all across this cabin. It is really well done, and it definitely gives us a very different look than we had before. Let's take a look at the steering wheel, because this is somewhat controversial. It is smaller than before. It's also kind of oval. It has a flat top and a flat bottom, but plenty of shiny black plastic as well. It has kind of a smiley face motif, I guess you'd say, with that shiny black plastic strip there. That is certainly going to scratch a bit more easily. A bit more controversial than that, though, is that we have a lot of controls that are now in the touchscreens, or we have to use controls like this for. So for instance, the steering wheel adjustment, that's done via this control and that upper screen. You have to use the two, one in coordination with the other. So I press the button, then I use this little bobble to go over to the adjustment for the steering wheel, then I can move it up and down and in and out. This is something that I think you'd get used to, but I'm not the biggest fan of the relocation and the missing controls that we used to have physically on the steering wheel. You'll also find those controls for the mirror up there and the pedal adjustments. We still have power pedals, but those are now going to be controlled via the buttons on the steering wheel. So it's really important to take a look at the upper screen, because this is how you're going to interact with all those features. It's a 24-inch LCD that's positioned really high and actually quite far away from the driver as well. Clearly that means we should take a look at this upper LCD next, because you're going to use this for a lot of those vehicle functions, and you're going to find repeated functions like the mapping interface over there. You're also going to find that down here on the central screen, but you're really going to be looking at this screen for a wide variety of different functions, from interacting with, for instance, the cruise control over there and the Blue Cruise system, the lane centering controls, to adjusting those vehicle functions over there, to things like your infotainment controls, etc. We then have a widget in the middle that is configurable. Right now it has the weather there, and then the mapping that's either displayed by the infotainment system down here or by your smartphone, depending on what you have active, because this is going to continue to support Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The central control screen functions very much like we see in the Lincoln lineup. We have a number of different vehicle settings like trail turn assist, your lighting controls. This is where we find the controls for those all-terrain lights or those off-road lights there. The high beams, low beams, most people are probably going to leave them in auto mode most of the time, of course. And then here you can control what widgets are up there in that screen. So for instance, if we want to see fuel economy, you click that option. And then up there in that screen, we then have fuel economy over there. You can get additional gauges if you want to, media, off-road status, tire pressure, towing status, trailer trips, etc. All that kind of stuff can be moved up there to that screen. You can also download apps from the Google App Store if you're interested in doing that. And again, CarPlay and Android Auto, those are both supported, as is things like the Google News app, YouTube, etc. This supports streaming audio. Let's go over to the Google Maps interface. You can see this is where we can get a full screen Google Map interface with live data. So yep, we have live data there too. If we were to, for instance, navigate to work and hit that start button there, you'd notice that the navigation directions are then going to be up there on that upper screen, which leaves the lower screen free to do something different with. So for instance, if you wanted to have CarPlay or Android Auto down there and you're mapping up above, you have that choice. Below that, we find a rotary style shifter. I'm not the biggest fan of rotary shifters, but this is a little bit easier to use than some of those piano button shifters we see in other vehicles. Not quite clear what this trim piece is supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be sort of a brushed metal or maybe a knurled metal kind of touch there. It's actually a polymer material that's been designed to look like that though. We have gear up-down selectors. You'll use that with the manual mode over there. Then we have some controls for the audio system. Power and volume, auto start, stop, parking button, etc. Big Expedition logo there. Then we have the storage compartment down here that I mentioned before. This one has the optional locking compartment right there. Kind of an interesting touch. Ford is calling this the in-vehicle safe option. You can also, of course, just get the regular storage compartment. Back here we have a Qi wireless charging mat, our Pro Trailer backup assist knob. That technology continues to come down from the F-150 lineup. Roller style cover over that. Two big cup holders over there, and here we find the power controls for this power sliding center console. So when that's slid up, it looks a little bit more like the Expedition used to. Then we have a leather wrapped armrest there. If I open this up, you can see we have a moderately sized storage compartment in there. It's not quite as big as it used to be, likely because of the power mechanism. And then behind that we find the tablet holder and then two cup holders for the rear passengers. Let's take a quick look around the Platinum interior. As you can see, all the shapes are the same and the screen is indeed the same in the dashboard. But this model has real wood trim here in the dash and on the doors. Relatively small wood trim panel, of course, over there on the doors. And this model has this two-tone sort of light gray, maybe almost ivory and charcoal interior color. Different pattern for the knurled metal all the way around, or knurled imitation metal. Ford has also given us an example of what you could use this storage bin for in the front. I always wondered what I did with my purse, now we know. And this model does not have that lockable storage compartment there. Instead, we have a rubber mat to help keep things from sliding around, but we still have the same powered console design here as in the other model. I do like the idea of the powered console. I'm obviously wondering exactly how that's going to hold up to kids powering that forward and backward all the time. Over on the driver's side, the steering wheel is exactly the same, except that we have a two-tone design. So we have that lighter gray section down there at the bottom, really accentuating this sort of smiley face or maybe panda motif on the steering wheel. Let me know what you think about that. Since I showed you the inside of the Platinum, let's take a look at the outside of the Platinum. As you can see, it's very similar in terms of its general theme to the Tremor model we saw earlier. Full LED headlights there, the daytime running lights and turn signals here. The top bar, that's the turn signal. The bottom wraparound light, that's just part of the daytime running light signature. Obviously no off-road lights in the Platinum trim. We get some different sort of matte chrome, I guess you'd say, running right there across the bottom of that grille. Very similar design, but not exactly the same. The Expedition logo, it's really 3D. It really sticks out quite far from the hood. As we work our way around, again, we have different wheels on this model as you'd expect. These are big 24-inch wheels wrapped in some big meaty 285 tires. Platinum badging around the back. This one, of course, has the roof rails up here as well. Kind of a chrome theme to those roof rails, nice and big. But that's about it. You can get short or long wheelbase. The only difference on the outside is the rear window back here and the overhang in the back. If you're looking for an Expedition that's outdoorsy with a luxury twist, you might want to check out the King Ranch model. We get some subtle exterior design changes, like these dark bronze accents on the grille and lower on the bumper as well. There are also some unique bronze and chromed 22-inch wheels. Those I think are really good looking, and I'm not usually the biggest fan of chrome wheels, but the bigger change happens on the inside. Because in here we find the signature two-tone brown King Ranch interior that we've seen in Ford's King Ranch models for a while. The running W logo, of course, right there on the seat backs. Lots of leather coating the interior, and different wood trim than we found in the Platinum model. I like this interior color combo and the wood trim, I think, the most in the lineup, because we don't just get the brown accents there, we also get the updated brown accents on the dashboard. So instead of the charcoal dash, this is a dark brown upper section. Then we get this medium brown wood. I think this is the best looking interior in the Expedition lineup. There is still some charcoal, most notably up there around that audio bar that runs across the audio system. This model also has the Bang & Olufsen audio system. You can see that B&O logo right there. But as you can see, the majority of the interior is largely the same as the other models, just with a warmer vibe thanks to the King Ranch trim. Steering wheel, that gets the same two-tone treatment, but in the different colors. Again, that more rugged leather, dark brown on top, medium nutty brown right there. Perforated seats, because these are both heated and ventilated. Again, I think it's a really attractive look. And then there is yet another running W logo right there in the center console. Be sure and sound off in the comments section. Did Ford do the right thing by updating the Expedition, especially the interior of the Expedition, making it look a little bit more crossover-like, a little bit more Lincoln-like, if I'm honest, with that lower dashboard and the big screen? This is a styling direction that we don't just see in the Expedition and the Lincoln, of course, because the Cadillac Escalade has an enormous screen all across the dashboard. Of course, it's well into the six figures for that, even the base model with that new updated screen, and this is likely going to be less expensive. The market is a little bit divided at the moment because we still have mini truck-like interiors, I guess you could say. The Sequoia, for instance, the Chevy and the GMC offerings, those still are very truck-like on the inside, but the Cadillac, the Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer, they also are a little bit more luxury sedan, luxury crossover-like on the inside than truck-like. And that seems to be the direction that Ford is going with this model, while also giving us, of course, the off-road capability that we find in the Tremor, we never used to find in the Expedition. So let me know what you think about all that down there in the comment section below. And what would you cross-shop against the Expedition? Are you thinking Tahoe? Are you thinking Suburban? Or because of this new interior change, are you thinking more Lincoln, more Cadillac, and more Wagoneer? Love to know your thoughts. See all of you later.